Walk into any coffee shop, diner, or retail store in America and really pay attention to the people around you. Watch how they make choices, how they handle money, what they reach for, and what they walk past. What you're actually witnessing in real time is a live demonstration of exactly why certain people quietly build wealth while everyone else stays locked in the same financial cycle year after year. The hard truth is that most people in this country are living paycheck to paycheck, and it has almost nothing to do with how much they earn. The numbers are genuinely difficult to sit with. When researchers asked Americans whether they could handle a basic $400 emergency out of pocket, 1 in every 3 people said they couldn't cover it. $400. That's less than what most people hand over to a car lender every single month. Yet for millions of working American adults, that number represents a full-blown financial crisis. And this isn't a story that only affects minimum wage workers or people stuck in low-paying industries. This financial fragility cuts across income levels, career paths, and college degrees alike. What makes this even harder to accept is that being broke isn't really about the amount of money hitting your bank account. You've probably crossed paths with someone pulling 6 figures who lives under constant financial pressure, while someone else making half that seems completely at ease. The difference between them isn't luck. It's not about having wealthy parents or catching some once-in-a-lifetime break. It comes down to the specific decisions those people make with their money every single day. Those decisions form patterns. Those patterns become habits. And those habits determine whether you spend your life anxious about money or whether you finally reach a place of real financial peace. The tragedy is that most people have zero idea which specific behaviors are keeping them stuck. They point to outside circumstances, bad timing, or a salary they think isn't high enough, when the real culprits are sitting right in front of them the entire time. Today we're going to break down the most common reasons people stay broke. And more importantly, we're going to walk through exactly how to sidestep these wealth-destroying traps. Some of these might catch you off guard because they're not the ones financial experts usually spotlight. Others might sting a little because you'll recognize them in your own life. But seeing these patterns clearly is the only real starting point for breaking out of them. The first major reason people stay broke sounds almost too basic to matter, but it's the foundation of everything else. They move through life without any real financial direction. Think about it this way. If you were driving cross-country, would you just back out of the driveway and start guessing your way there? Of course not. You'd map the route, know your stops, and have a clear picture of exactly where you were headed. But that's almost precisely how most people manage their money. They earn it, they spend it, they might tuck a little away, but there's no specific destination driving any of it. When there are no clear targets, every financial decision becomes a guess. Should you grab that new gadget or throw the money into savings? Should you pick up overtime or invest that time into building a new skill? These questions are impossible to answer well when you don't know what you're actually working toward. Financial goals create the structure that makes smart money decisions possible. When someone has a real specific target, like eliminating debt within 2 years or building a house down payment, every purchase gets measured against that goal. People with clear objectives ask completely different questions. Instead of wondering whether they can technically afford something, they ask whether that purchase pulls them closer to or further from where they're going. The second reason people stay financially stuck is a complete lack of preparation for life's inevitable surprises. Remember that stat about 1 in 3 Americans being unable to cover a $400 emergency? That number exposes a fundamental misunderstanding of how life actually works. Unexpected expenses aren't really that unexpected at all. Cars break down, appliances die, medical bills arrive, and job situations shift. These things happen to everyone. They're entirely predictable in their unpredictability. When people haven't prepared for any of it, they get cornered into desperate financial decisions. They slap the car repair on a credit card, call a relative for a loan, or ignore the problem entirely and hope it disappears. Every one of those responses creates more financial damage down the line and pulls them further from any kind of stability. The third major wealth destroyer is running your personal finances without any kind of spending plan. Nobody would operate a business without monitoring what comes in and what goes out. But that's exactly how most people manage their own money. They have a rough idea of what they earn and a vague sense of where it disappears, but they lack the actual clarity that only comes from tracking it consistently. This creates a pattern almost everyone has lived through. You get paid, you make what feel like completely reasonable purchases throughout the week, and somehow by the end of the month, you're staring at your balance, wondering what happened to it all. Without tracking, there's no way to spot the small spending leaks quietly draining your finances. The $5 coffees, the impulse grabs at the checkout, the streaming subscriptions you forgot were still running, they compound into real money over time. The fourth reason people stay broke is one of the more psychologically loaded ones. They live almost entirely in the present moment. There's actually a surface level appeal to this. Life is short, youth doesn't last, and there's a genuine argument for enjoying money while you have the energy to appreciate it. The problem surfaces when present-focused thinking becomes so extreme that the future gets completely ignored. These people make financial decisions as though their future self is someone else's problem entirely. They chase immediate satisfaction and assume that their financial needs down the road will somehow sort themselves out. This isn't about squeezing every dollar and refusing to enjoy anything. It's about finding the right balance between living now and building something real for what's ahead. The fifth wealth-destroying behavior involves expensive habits that most people never even register as financial drains. We're not just talking about the obvious ones, though those absolutely count. We're talking about spending patterns that feel completely normal and justified, but are quietly moving serious money out of your pocket month after month. Take someone who smokes a pack a day. At current prices, that habit runs roughly $250 a month. That's $3,000 a year. Over a decade, that's $30,000, not counting what that money could have grown into if it had been invested instead. That very same person will often turn around and say they can't afford to put anything away for their future. The same math applies to eating out. Grabbing lunch from a restaurant every day and ordering dinner a few nights a week can easily run $500 to $800 a month. That's money that could be quietly stacking up somewhere instead of disappearing into takeout bags. The sixth reason people stay broke comes down to how they think about debt. Specifically, their inability to separate debt that builds wealth from debt that destroys it. Not all borrowing is created equal, but most people treat it like it is. Productive debt positions you to acquire assets that generate income or appreciate in value over time. A mortgage on a rental property, student loans that open real earning doors, a business loan that funds something profitable, these can all work in your favor. They help you build wealth faster than saving alone ever could. Destructive debt is borrowed money used to purchase things that start losing value the moment you own them and provide zero financial return going forward. Credit card debt from vacations, car loans on vehicles beyond your actual needs, financing on consumer goods, all of it lands here. This kind of debt doesn't just charge you interest. It stretches your budget past a sustainable point, creates ongoing financial stress, and shuts the door on real wealth-building activity. What makes it especially punishing is that destructive debt enables people to buy things they genuinely cannot afford, so they're not just paying interest. They're funding a lifestyle they were never able to support in the first place. The seventh reason people stay financially stuck reveals something uncomfortable about human nature itself. They make purchasing decisions based on what other people might think rather than what actually makes financial sense for them. This behavior is so wired into modern American consumer culture that most people doing it would deny it outright if you ask them directly. Watch what happens at a shopping mall. Scroll through social media. Notice what someone buys the week after a promotion comes through at work. The pattern shows up everywhere. Someone picks up an expensive watch not because they need a better way to track time, but because they want coworkers to notice. Another person signs a lease on a luxury car they can barely cover each month because they believe it says something important about who they are. These decisions aren't being made out of practical need or real enjoyment. They're being made for an audience. The psychological trap runs deeper than simple vanity. A lot of people have genuinely convinced themselves that looking successful is part of the path to actually becoming successful. If they dress right, drive the right vehicle, and live in the right neighborhood, they believe opportunities will find them. While presentation matters in certain professional situations, this thinking more often becomes a very expensive form of self-deception. The real irony is that actually wealthy people tend to do the opposite. They drive older cars, dress without flash, and live in homes that are comfortable rather than eye-catching. They understand that every dollar spent on appearances is a dollar that isn't out there building anything. Meanwhile, the people most visibly struggling financially are often the ones spending the most money to look like they aren't. This appearance-driven spending becomes a trap that tightens over time. The more money flows toward performing success, the less is available for actually building it. The facade becomes more expensive to maintain, while the real financial picture quietly falls apart behind it. Eventually, the performance costs so much that genuine financial success becomes nearly impossible to reach from behind it. The eighth wealth-destroying behavior involves a fundamental misunderstanding of how money should actually move through a person's life. Most people run their finances completely backward. They pay everyone else first and then hope something is left over for their own future. This feels responsible on the surface, but it practically guarantees that real wealth building stays on the back burner permanently. Here's how it plays out in practice. Someone gets their paycheck and immediately starts handling bills, groceries, gas, and whatever else is demanding attention that week. If anything survives to the end of the month, maybe a little gets tucked into savings. The problem is that there's almost never anything meaningful left. Life has a predictable way of expanding to consume whatever income is available. When your own financial future sits last in line, it almost always ends up getting nothing at all. The alternative flips the entire sequence. Before a single bill gets paid or a purchase gets made, a set amount moves directly into savings and investments first. That money is treated exactly like a non-negotiable expense. Same weight as rent, same weight as utilities. Only after securing their own financial future do they work with what's left for everything else. This single shift creates real psychological momentum. When someone knows their future is already funded before the day even starts, they make entirely different decisions with what remains. They get more creative about trimming costs, more driven to grow their income, and far more intentional about every dollar they spend. They adapt to living on less than their full paycheck, which naturally kills lifestyle inflation and builds genuine wealth-building habits over time. The ninth reason people stay broke connects directly to how they relate to risk and opportunity. Some people are flat out reckless with money, but the opposite extreme causes just as much financial damage in the long run. Others are so terrified of any financial risk that they let every real opportunity pass them by. They park money in savings accounts, earning almost nothing, while inflation slowly eats away at its purchasing power. They stay completely out of stocks, real estate, or any kind of business investment because something might go wrong, without recognizing that staying out of the game is itself a significant financial risk. This extreme caution almost always traces back to a core misunderstanding of what risk actually is. A lot of people think of risk as something to be avoided at all costs, when building wealth intelligently actually requires learning to manage risk rather than run from it. The goal isn't to eliminate risk. It's to take calculated risks that offer reasonable upside while keeping catastrophic losses off the table. Fear-based financial decisions also close people off from opportunities that require accepting some uncertainty. A chance to launch a side business, invest in developing a new skill, or relocate to a market with stronger job opportunities gets passed over because it doesn't come with a guarantee. And all the while, they fail to see that staying exactly where they are carries its own risk. The risk of falling further behind while the cost of everything around them keeps climbing. The 10th wealth destroying pattern involves how people think about income generation itself. Most people stuck financially think about money in a straight line, time traded directly for dollars, and they never build anything beyond that single exchange. They work their job, collect a paycheck, and assume working more hours is the only real lever available to them. This linear mindset places a hard ceiling on their financial potential. People who actually build wealth understand that genuine financial freedom comes from developing income sources that don't require them to be physically present to keep running. Rental income, dividends, a business that operates without them, royalties from creative work. These streams keep generating money whether they're sleeping, traveling, or focused on something else entirely. Making the shift from earned income to passive income takes real upfront effort and often requires capital investment, which is exactly why people who are already financially stretched have trouble making that move. They're so consumed by covering immediate needs that they can't carve out the time or resources to build something larger. That keeps them locked in the time for money trade indefinitely. What makes it especially difficult is that building passive income almost always requires pulling back on current consumption to free up the resources needed. Living in a smaller apartment for a few years to save a rental property down payment. Working nights and weekends on a side business while the day job keeps the lights on. These sacrifices feel real and uncomfortable in the short term, but they're exactly what creates actual financial options later on. The 11th reason people stay financially stuck comes down to their relationship with financial education. Most people stop learning about money once school ends, if they ever received anything useful on the topic to begin with. They treat financial knowledge like a fixed, static thing rather than a skill that has to be actively developed and kept current. Markets change, tax laws evolve, new investment tools emerge, and economic conditions shift in ways that affect every decision you make. Someone operating on financial principles they absorbed 20 years ago and never updated is making decisions based on a map that no longer matches the territory. They may be missing real opportunities or running on assumptions that simply don't apply anymore. This gap in ongoing financial education also makes people easy targets for bad advice and predatory financial products. Without enough knowledge to critically evaluate what they're being told, they tend to default to whoever sounds the most confident or whoever has something to sell them. They wind up paying excessive fees on investment products they don't understand, falling for get-rich-quick promises, or committing to major financial decisions without fully grasping what they're actually agreeing to. Building real wealth requires understanding how compound interest works, how to approach taxes efficiently, how to allocate assets across time, and how to manage risk intelligently. None of these are complicated subjects, but they do require genuine effort to learn and consistent application to master. People who commit to growing their financial knowledge over time carry a real and lasting advantage over those who never bother. As we've worked through these patterns, you've probably caught a few of them showing up in your own life or in the lives of people you know well. The encouraging part is that recognizing them is the genuine starting point for change. None of this requires overhauling your entire life or pulling off some dramatic financial transformation overnight. Small, consistent adjustments in how you handle money will produce real results over time. The key is identifying one or two specific areas where your current habits are working against you and getting precise about improving those first. Start with your financial goals. If you've been drifting without real targets, carve out time this week to define exactly what you want your money to accomplish. Make them specific and time-bound. Instead of telling yourself you want to save more money, decide that you want $15,000 set aside within 18 months. Instead of hoping to get out of debt at some undefined point in the future, commit to eliminating every credit card balance within 2 years. Once you have real objectives in place, every financial decision becomes dramatically easier to evaluate. When the urge to make an impulse purchase hits, run it through one simple filter. Does this move me closer to or further from where I'm trying to go? That single question will save you from more bad decisions than any complicated spreadsheet ever could. Next, take emergency preparedness seriously right now. If you're currently part of that 1 in 3 group who couldn't handle a $400 surprise expense, make building a basic emergency fund your immediate priority. Start wherever you realistically can. Even $50 set aside specifically for emergencies is a stronger foundation than nothing at all. Build it gradually and consistently until you have enough sitting there to cover several months of essential expenses. That fund does more than just catch you when something breaks. It provides a level of psychological peace of mind that actively lowers your financial stress baseline, and it keeps you from going into debt every single time life throws something unexpected at you. It is one of the most high-impact changes you can make to your overall financial stability. On the budgeting side, you need an honest accounting of where your money is actually going each month. You don't need fancy software or elaborate spreadsheets to do it. Simply track every dollar you spend for 30 days and categorize as you go. That exercise alone will reveal spending patterns that might genuinely surprise you. Most people discover they're spending far more than they ever imagined in categories like dining out, entertainment, and small impulse purchases that never registered as significant in the moment. Once you can actually see your spending patterns clearly, you can make real, informed decisions about where to pull back. Focus on the categories where the gap between what you intended to spend and what you actually spent is widest. The goal here is sustainable change, not a short-term spending restriction that you abandon in a few weeks and come back from worse off than before. On expensive habits, run the real annual math on your regular indulgences. The daily coffee run, the frequent takeout orders, the subscriptions you haven't opened since last year. Total those up and sit with what that money could have built if it had been redirected towards something that actually compounds. A lot of people discover that what felt like small, harmless spending is actually one of the primary obstacles standing between them and financial progress. On debt, build a clear elimination strategy while simultaneously stopping any new destructive borrowing. Write out every debt you're carrying, the balance and the interest rate on each one. Put extra payments toward the highest rate debt first. That's the mathematical approach that saves you the most money over the life of your payoff. And commit to not taking on new debt for consumer purchases going forward. If paying cash for something isn't an option, that's your answer right there. The appearance-driven spending trap requires genuine self-honesty about why you're actually making significant purchases. Before anything major, ask yourself whether you're solving a real problem or managing someone else's perception of you. If the honest answer is the second one, ask yourself whether that brief satisfaction is actually worth the long-term financial cost you're signing up for. The pay yourself first principle starts with automation. Make it happen without requiring a decision every time. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account into savings and investments the moment each paycheck lands. Start with whatever amount you can realistically commit to right now, even if it's just $50 or $100 a month. The specific dollar amount matters less in the beginning than establishing the habit of putting your own financial future first before anything else lays claim to that money. As your income grows or your expenses shrink, keep increasing those automatic contributions over time. Most people find they adapt to living on less than their full paycheck much faster than they expected once the money is redirected before they ever have a chance to spend it. For those ready to think beyond traditional employment income, start seriously exploring what it would take to build an additional revenue stream. That might mean freelancing in an area where you already have real skills, building something on the side that generates income online, or investing in income-producing assets like dividend stocks or rental properties. These paths almost always require time and effort before they generate meaningful income, but they represent the actual road toward not having to trade every available hour for a dollar. The financial education piece is a simple, ongoing commitment. Keep learning and don't stop. Read books on money and investing, follow reputable financial content, listen to podcasts from people who have genuinely built wealth from the ground up, and take courses that fill in the gaps in what you know. The more deeply you understand how money actually works, the better every financial decision you make will be for the rest of your life. Here's the real bottom line. Wealthy people aren't inherently smarter or more naturally disciplined than everyone else. They've simply built better financial habits and made those habits automatic through enough consistent practice that they run without effort. Every person who has built real, lasting wealth started from the same basic principles we've covered today. The path from broke to financially secure is not mysterious, and it is not reserved for a select group of people. It requires making different choices with your money, consistently, over a long enough period of time for the results to show. Some of those choices mean spending less in certain areas so more can go to work building your future. Others mean accepting short-term discomfort to develop income or skills that pay off substantially later. What separates people who build genuine wealth from those who stay stuck isn't luck, a head start, or an extraordinary income. It's the willingness to look honestly at the behaviors working against them and replace those behaviors one by one with habits that actually build something real. The sooner those changes begin, the more time compound growth has to do the heavy lifting for you. Your financial future is not locked in by where you started or by the mistakes already behind you. It is shaped entirely by the decisions you make starting right now. Choose to step away from the patterns keeping most Americans financially stuck, and you put yourself squarely in the minority who actually get to experience what genuine financial freedom feels like. The question was never whether these principles work. The only question is whether you'll apply them consistently enough to find out.